enough. Hey, mama, stand tall. You've given so much. You gave your all, now it's time to shine. You've been in the shadows, now step in the light. Rediscover your voice, take back your name. You're not just a mom, your power, your flame. From tired to thriving, from silence to song. With YDC you belong. Let's start living, rise again. You are more than just a pain. Confident, bold, unashamed. Your discovery coach, remember the name. You're strong, you're seen, you're free to dream. YDC, 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 remember the name. Hey mama, you're more than enough. Hey mama, stand tall, you've given so much. You gave your all, now it's time to shine. You've been in the shadows, now step in the light. Rediscover your voice, take back your name. You're not just a mom, your power, your flame. From tired to thriving, from silence to song. With YDC you belong. Let's start living.
Hey mamas, let's start living and rise again. Thank you for joining me on another Friday Live. It's Friday the 13th of March 2026. The year is running, isn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on another Friday Live. My name remains Debbie Echo, and I'm the founder of Your Discovery Coach, a safe space where women come to find themselves again, find their voice, intentionally grow, and all that. It's a safe space, really. It's a safe space. So thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. We're going to be talking today about your life reflects what you tolerate, and please stay with me as we thread through. I'm just going to ask you one uncomfortable question, just one uncomfortable question. If somebody walks into your life today and simply observed how your life is, your habits, your how your life is running generally, what would they conclude about your life? If someone walks in and says, oh, let me just observe you for one day, what would it look like that you're doing, or that you tolerate, what you accept? What would your values look like? What would they say about that observation? What would they conclude about your standards? Now, not that, not what not what you want them to say, but what exactly it is that no. So there's this thing about us, right? As human beings, we have an idea of who we are in our heads. We have an idea of what we represent, but a lot of times, if we're not careful, there's this disparity between what we think we are and what we actually are. There's a disparity. So it's not what I think, I believe. I was reading a story just before this class. I'm always reading that story. I think it comes literally just before this class. So yeah, so let me just say that story. So this guy says he went for his school reunion, right? But in secondary school, he used to believe that he was so invisible. He was so not seen. Nobody knew him. He was awkward. He was weird, and he didn't have any friends. But when he told himself, this is 15 years after school, let me just go for school reunion and let me just see. So he braced himself. He went to the school reunion, and people were saying different things about him, that he was like, huh, me? Somebody said, oh, I remember you so well. You used to be so funny. I remember you so well. You used to have math. You used to help me with my math. You were so helpful. And he said for 15 years, he had carried an idea about himself that he had no business carrying. So it was very instructive for me, because sometimes what we believe in our head is actually not it. This could be skewed towards the negative and skewed towards the positive. It doesn't that's not the point here. But sometimes what we think in our head is totally different from what it is that we're actually living. So he said he was glad he went, because for him, he had gone to therapy over the years, because he felt unseen, unloved, unwanted. So the feelings he carried was him carrying it, not the people around him actually feeling that way. So I'll go back to my question with this story in mind. When somebody comes into your house, let's give an example. Just someone comes into your house and watches you, observes you. What's the version of yourself that you believe that you are? And what's the version that they will actually see? Because life has a funny way of reflecting something back to us. It's not our intentions. You see that man I was talking about, he had a picture of himself. But no, that was not actually what was going on. People saw him differently, but he didn't see himself differently. It reflects back to us not our intentions. It doesn't reflect to us back our dreams. It reflects to us what we tolerate. So the reason he had gone to therapy was because he had tolerated the thoughts about him being invisible. The reason he had been feeling isolated, it was him carrying those feelings. It had nothing to do with what his actual classmates were thinking about him. Let's go on. Um, there are times in our lives that, or there was a time in my own life, let me use myself as an example, when I realized something uncomfortable. I kept saying I wanted calm, but I wanted clarity, I wanted structure. But every time I did an honest assessment, or when I sat down to do an honest assessment, the things I was tolerating were not the things that bring calm. They're not the things that bring structure. They're not the things that bring, clarity. So you want something, but you're tolerating other things. I'll give you one good example before I go on of things we tolerate. Before it's going to be down, we're going to talk about them. But one good way to know what you're tolerating, what are your excuses? And somebody says do something and you give an excuse. What are your excuses? What is it that no, they tell you, okay, read 15 pages, sorry, not 15 pages, 1 page for 15 minutes a day, but you have an excuse. I'm so busy, I'm so this. Those are the things that you're tolerating. And unfortunately, see, what we tolerate is what shapes our life. What we accept into our lives, what the doors that we leave open is what shapes the future that we're building. But let me not jump the gun, right? So I said I wanted clarity, I wanted a structure, I wanted this, and I wanted that. But on one point, you're tolerating a messy routine, you're tolerating constant interruptions. Interruptions might not be from the kids. Obviously, when your kids come to, call you, meet you, the sensible adult thing to do is to give them the attention. But sometimes the interruptions are not from them. The interruptions come from us, our phones, our devices, social media scrolling, constantly accepting to pick up that phone, and this is not calling anyone out or calling myself out. It's a thing in this world, 21st century, that we live in. Phone interruptions, social media interruptions, just not even phone, even normal messages from left, right, and center. They're constant interruptions. And something I had started learning in the past couple of months is how to actually block out time. But that's not what we're here today. How to have time blocks where you tell yourself that, okay, between this time and this time, I don't want anything to do with screen, I don't want anything to do with devices, I don't want to be looking at, I just want to be in physical contact with either my kids, my husband, or myself, or wherever it is that I'm relating with at that time. Because it's a big drain. It drains your day, it drains your life, it drains you so much. So when you find out that in a full day you have no protected time, you can see that in a way you're tolerating things that are shaping your mind, or you're shaping your life. So I have my uninterrupted time, and it has to be when everybody's asleep. That's the sacrifice you make for a life that you want, right? And then saying yes when you wanted to say no. So every time people are coming to you for, you know, favors and this, you send you messages, you don't have to respond to every message on time. So you can see right now, even though we haven't gone to that yet, but you can see right now that the things that we are tolerating, the things that we tolerate as moms, the things that we allow, the things that we give an excuse for. Oh, I cannot ignore this person, I cannot ignore this messages, I can't have protected time, I can't wake up early. The excuses that we give now reflect what we tolerate in our lives. So there's one thing to say I want to be a best-selling author. And there's another thing to work towards being that best-selling author. There's one thing to say I want to be a great mom. And there's another thing to be actually doing the work that makes me a great mom. Let's just continue. When you tolerate chaos, the calm life the calm life that you actually desire becomes an illusion. So what are you tolerating? That's one question I'm going to start with, and that's one question I hope that you will think about as we go on. The hidden nature of tolerance. Tolerance rarely looks dramatic. Like I said, I'm giving a couple of examples. You just pick up your phone. This is my phone here. You pick up your phone. It doesn't look dramatic. It's just you going through your phone, right? There's no drama there. There's no big voice telling you, "Oh, my daughter, drop that phone." Or there's no. It's just a phone. It's just a scrolling. It rarely looks dramatic. It looks normal. I'm just responding to a message. I, I need more rest. After all, they said we need 8 hours of rest in a day. I need more rest. Oh, at night, if I don't watch that movie, I'm not saying watching movies are bad, please don't get me wrong, but at night, if I don't watch this movie or if I don't do this, then I feel like I'm just giving all my time to the kids. But the truth of the matter is that you're tolerating something. You can decide, oh, this is not the time for this is I will schedule my movie time to another time where it doesn't affect my sleep. So you can see how it's one or the other. There's an opportunity cost for every decision that you make. So it looks normal. It looks normal. Examples, the clutter that you keep stepping over. Oh, I'm going to declutter this wardrobe tomorrow. Then tomorrow becomes next tomorrow, and then next tomorrow becomes next tomorrow. And then the routine you keep postponing, you tell yourself that, okay, scheduling this thing that is very important, gym, for instance, schedule it in and let's go to the gym, but you keep postponing it. You can see how little by little there's no drama. Nobody's going to come and say, why you scheduling your gym time. Nobody's going to come and hassle you. Nobody's going to come and do that. But you can see how these are the little things that we tolerate in our lives that just make us just drift through life. The habit that you keep excusing, the boundary that you keep avoiding. So tolerance now creeps in quietly, and then your life starts to reflect it. Creeps in quietly. Over time, it becomes your environment. Over time, it becomes the culture of your life that you're living. So you've tolerated this for so long, it now becomes who you are. People can identify you with that, or you can identify yourself with that. Doesn't even, because these things are not dramatic and it has nothing to do with anybody. So it's just a question of it starts to become your own identity, starts to become you, starts to become your environment, and then shapes the culture of your life. So 1 year goes on, 2 years goes on, a couple of months go down. You're wondering, oh, you see why I say that when people say, how have the years gone, is an illusion, because it feels like the years have gone, but the years didn't just go like that. The years went every single day that you excused yourself. The years went every single day that you tolerated less from yourself. Every single day you gave an excuse. The years were going. It's just the culmination, the compounding of it, that you realize 10 years has gone. What have I done? And that's where the danger is. Why women tolerate what they don't want. A lot of times, these are the reasons that women tolerate what they don't want. You don't want to get anyone offended. You're trying to play nice, you're trying to look nice, you're trying to be accepted, you're trying to be loved, you're trying to, just fit into, you don't want to ruffle feathers. These people have been my friends. Oh, this thing has, this let's tread with care. After all, we don't know, you don't know tomorrow. Nobody knows tomorrow. Tomorrow might be, all those things. And even when your energy is saying no, even when your body is saying no, even when you know that you can't keep up with this charade, you just still say yes because you're afraid of not being nice. You're afraid of conflict. That used to be me. Afraid of conflict. You don't know how to keep a boundary because you're afraid of conflict. You rather say yes to the whole world than say yes to your own rest. And that's a very dangerous place to be. Hello, Ngozi. Thank you for joining us. I hope you're safe where you are in Saudi. Thank you so much for joining us. You see, sometimes you know that a boundary is needed, but you avoid it. You avoid it. Fear of conflict. Let me not offend them. Let me not offend my husband. Let me not offend. I don't have a problem offending my children. They'll be all right. But let me not offend the adults around me. Let me not offend them, and then you avoid. But you see what that avoidance is doing is also costing you something. So it's again your opportunity cost. You need to choose, because a lot of times for women, for a couple of women, not all women, conflict, feels uncomfortable, especially if you've lived in a space where, you've been a people pleaser, you've, it's just something about you that you want to make everybody happy. You want to make everybody happy. You want everybody to be comfortable. It has a lot to do with, a lot that has to do with our growing up, not being able to say no, not being able to just pause and say, okay, I'm not doing this today. I'm sorry. So that pattern now continues. Another reason people women Another reason why women tolerate what they don't want is because they have things we call identity habits. So you've lived in a certain way for so long and then it feels normal. So when change comes, change feels uncomfortable. You can't stay with the change. There's no system around you, there's no structure around you to sustain that change. Or when you know that, okay, I need to demand change from my life, but you don't know how to go about it. And that's what we do in our Becoming Her program. We give you these systems, we give you the structure, we give you the support that you will help you to make identity changes, identity habits. Because a lot of times when change feels hard, when it is just the physical things you're trying to change, not your inner infrastructure, not your inner architecture, not who you are on the inside. So even when everything is drained, I know a couple of women who, they every time I see them, they're tired, not in the bad sense of the word, but they're tired in that they carry so much. And when I said to her, one day I was talking to one of the ladies, and I said to her, I said, let's sit down and analyze what is not important in your life. There was a certain day I went to her house and she had 76 things on her to-do list. Even looking at it, I was feeling drained. I said, you're doing so much. You're doing so much. If you remember what we said last week about what Napoleon Hill said, he said you can do everything, but you can't do everything. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. And she was carrying it. And for her, she said she's in fact speaking about this now. I remember that conversation. She said, "Oh, this is how I can cope." So she's sleeping late, she's waking up early, she's cooking, she's doing this, she's doing that. But she feels like that's her identity. She's carried that identity for so long that she doesn't know how to sit down. And I feel very, you know, just being around such a chaotic situation, I feel very stressed about it. But I'm like, I don't know how you're coping, because it now makes makes the other person feel like they're lazy. But no, it's not true. Is that whole this is who I am. I've been this way for long. I've had to fend for everybody for long, living in survival. I've had to carry everybody for long. I've had to do this for long. So it's now part of me. I can't sit down. Sometimes like it's like feeling that need. You see, if I sit down now, everything collapses. So you're not able to delegate. You're not able to give something else to someone to do because nobody can do it like you. It becomes an identity. In fact, when it's funny because I'm saying this because as I remember, when you enter into such a space, right, and you want to help, there's this thing that even tells you there's no need helping because this person will redo it again. The person needs the thing cleaned in a specific way. She needs everything in a specific way. So if I try and help, there's no point. So we all just sit down, even though we want to help, even though we are not insensitive, but we've come to understand that this is an identity problem and there's nothing we can do except the person wants change. There's nothing really we can do. So, what feels normal is not always what is healthy. The fact that you're very productive, the fact that you're always on your feet, the fact that you're always doing XYZ, the fact that the whole world can rely on you, it doesn't mean that it's healthy. Because at some point, the body starts to demand rest. And when you don't give the body the rest that it demands, it takes it by force. The cost of low standards. Low standards do not create peace. When you have low standards in your life, it doesn't create peace. It creates pressure. Pressure. As every high achieving woman that I've ever met, they have very high standards. This type of standards that you're like, what are you even feeling like? What's the big deal? you know what are you on about? I can't text you at a particular time, I can't call you at a particular time. It feels like What are you feeling like? But the honest truth is that if you're not going to be guarded about your space, about your time, and everything and anything has access to your time, you won't build anything sustainable. You won't build anything great. So I started to understand this principle that when you have low tolerance, you do not, when you have low standards, sorry, you don't create peace. When everything has access to you, when you think that everything is your cup of tea, when you feel like everything is something you should be minding, you can't create peace. When every piece of news, when every piece of scroll is your business, you can't create peace. When everything around you seems to overwhelm you, there's no peace. It's having low standards. I was talking about high achieving women, and it's something that I had I'm now beginning to understand. You can't allow everything into your space. Low tolerance, um low tolerance has makes you have constant stress, scattered attention, resentment, exhaustion. You start that resentment issue, that same issue. You're doing everything, you've not allowed anybody to do anything with you, but you're feeling resentful because nobody's doing anything with you, but you're also the reason nobody's doing anything with you. Can you see the cycle? You're angry that nobody's doing anything, but when they do it, they can't do it the way you've done. No sense of delegation, low standards. These are what we call low standards. Everything has access to you. Everything, the work, the everything is on you. When standards are unclear, life now becomes reactive. You start to react instead of saying, "Oh, I'm not going to be doing this from today." Especially if your kids are of age and they can do certain things in the house. Oh no, from today, this is your share of the work. This is your share of the work. But when you're not setting clear expectations, when you're not setting clear standards, you're angry with everybody in the house. So everybody starts to feel the heat. The 2-year-old that you have in the house starts to feel the heat. You can just say simply, when you finish with your toys, this is a bowl, or this is a, sorry, not a bowl, this is a bucket. Put all the toys in this bucket and then you carry it. But you're no standards, just everything you want to carry. Low standards, high tolerance. You're tolerating so much. You're tolerating so much. We're not saying, we're not talking about perfection, but high standards bring clarity. It helps you to know that what am I. So, in fact, one question that has been going through my head in the past couple of months is anytime I'm on an activity and I ask myself, what's this activity? What's the aim of this activity? Is this where this activity is supposed to be sitting at this time of my day? It gives me, it gives you a sense of, I'm not supposed to be doing this now. Okay, this one I drop it now. I'm not supposed to be doing this now. This one I drop it. I'm not supposed to be doing this one now. This one I drop it. And then you find out that your day becomes clearer. You're able to achieve much because you're not multitasking, switching from one event, from one activity to another, switching from one thing to another, switching from it's it brings clarity for you. It helps you to understand what it is that your day is about, what it is that you are supposed to be doing. It helps you. So I want us to talk about something that I call the standards shift. Have a mindset shift. Instead of asking, how do I feel today? Ask yourself one question. What's the standard here today? What's the standard? Don't ask yourself, how do I feel today? What's the standard I'm trying to raise? What's the standard I'm trying to raise? For instance, you can ask yourself, your morning routine. What's the standard I'm trying to raise with my morning routine? Is it more reflection time? Is it more, quiet time? What is the standard that I am trying to raise? So as I'm trying to raise that standard, I'm not going to be tolerating all the distractions. So for instance, let's use morning routine for an example. I want to have a clear morning routine. I want to have a clear quiet time. I want to have a time where I can reflect. What are the things that will be a distraction for me in the morning? My phone. Okay, so what do I do with my phone? I take it away, I put it in another room, not accessible, not somewhere I can grab it easily. I want 1 hour, I want 1 hour, 30 minutes, I want 30 minutes, whatever time it is, set a timer and tell yourself, for the next 30 minutes, I'm not touching this thing called my phone, no matter how addicted it is. So you see how how in little decisions you start to raise your standards instead of giving excuses. What's the standard you're trying to raise with your communication? What's the standard you're trying to raise for work? What's the standard you're trying to raise in your personal growth? And what's the standard you're trying to raise with time boundaries? Is it just being mean or feeling cool? No, it's not that. It is about having time boundaries so that you can do meaningful work when your energy is highest. Standards reduce emotional negotiation. So when you realize that the standard for my morning routine is what it is, you don't start to negotiate whether or not I should pick my phone or I shouldn't pick my phone and all that. I want us to have just one practical reflection before we go. One practical reflection. I want you to ask yourself these questions. Ask yourself or write it down or just think about it. What have I been tolerating that drains me in my life? Is there anything I have been tolerating? Is there any thoughts I've been tolerating? Is there any habits that I've been tolerating that just drains me? Are there excuses that I repeatedly give? When they say do this, I'm like, oh, this I can't. I just can't because it's become my default disposition has become excuses. I want you to think about it. What excuses do you repeatedly give? What habits are you repeatedly excusing? Or it's just, for instance, a lot of people scroll when they're distracted, they're hungry. It's an excuse. We can train ourselves to do anything. It's an excuse. So what are the excuses that the habits that you're repeatedly excusing? What boundary have I avoided setting? And what standard needs to change starting today? What's your standard? What standard do you need to raise after listening to me today? Your life reflects what you tolerate. Your life reflects what you tolerate. Your life reflects what you tolerate. Raise your standards and raise the standard of your life. Raise your standard. So I just wanted to round off this afternoon by saying, I'm going to say something I keep saying, every Friday. Raising standards, it just sounds simple. It does sound like, something that you can just, put together, da 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 da, and come. But living them consistently is where a lot of women struggle. So you will just, stand up for me and say, okay, I'm going to schedule this, I'm going to start doing this, I'm going to start doing that. Because, and then you find out after a couple of days, it crashes again. A lot of times women struggle because standards require structure and they require accountability. They require a container. And that's one of the reasons I created our program, Becoming Her. Not to add pressure, it's not for pressure. It's to create structure around growth and help women gather in a focused container with shared with shared standards, transformation become possible. So I just want you to click on the link in my bio if you're interested in joining us. If it's something that you really desire, you don't want the drift that happens, you don't want the drift that happens with life. Time is going, life is going. Whatever it is that you're tolerating now compounds, but the good news is that you can always start again. You can always press pause on bad habits and you can always build good habits. No matter how hard it is possible to press pause on anything that is draining you, to press pause on anything that is keeping you away from the kind of life that you know you need to be living, and to press play on a life that you will look back on and you will be grateful for. So I want to ask you, what are you no longer available for? What are you no longer available for? And let me just say this, gently. Whatever it is that you're no longer available for, your decision today will show what will show you whether or not you're available for it, or it was just an empty talk. What your action will be after today, after listening to me today, this makes a big difference. So it's not in the talk, it's in the walk. Hey mamas, let's start living. I'll see you next week Friday. I'm hoping to see you in my Becoming Her program. Just click the link on the bio and let's start living. Life is going, time is going, time goes, time waits for no one. You want to look back and you don't have any regrets about the life that you have lived. I'm rooting for you. Thank you and do have an amazing afternoon.